It was a quiet Thursday morning at Branford & Co., a mid-sized department store nestled in the heart of a suburban shopping district. The aisles were bright, the floors gleaming from a recent polish, and soft instrumental music floated through the speakers. Evelyn Moore, a slender black woman in her late 60s, walked slowly through the store entrance. She carried herself with quiet dignity, her posture straight, her stride steady despite her age. She wore a simple cream coat, pearl earrings, and shoes that had clearly seen more boardrooms than boutiques. Most people who passed her saw only another elderly customer, maybe a grandmother out shopping for her family. No one could have guessed that she was the majority shareholder and chairwoman of Branford Holdings, the company that owned this very store and hundreds like it across the country. Evelyn wasn't there for an inspection or a publicity stunt. She'd built her success on one belief: that a leader should never forget what her business feels like from the ground. Once or twice a month, she'd visit one of her stores unannounced, dressed plainly, watching how employees treated people when they thought no one important was watching. Today, she'd chosen this branch at random. The store manager, Dean Wilcox, didn't recognize her when she entered. In his mid-30s, Dean was ambitious but impulsive, with the kind of ego that grew quickly in small positions of power. He prided himself on running a tight ship, but his version of discipline often crossed the line into arrogance. As Evelyn browsed near the customer service desk, she noticed a young mother trying to return a children's coat. The woman spoke softly, holding a crumpled receipt, while Dean stood on the other side of the counter with his arms crossed. "Ma'am," he said impatiently, "this coat's clearly been worn. I can't take it back." "Company policy." The woman's face fell. "It doesn't fit my son. He wore it once to school, that's all. The tag's still inside." Dean sighed theatrically. "And if I made exceptions for everyone, we'd be out of business." "Next." Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. She watched as the young mother turned away, clutching the coat in her child's hand, embarrassment written across her face. Evelyn walked up to the counter. "Excuse me," she said in a calm voice. "Was that really necessary?" Dean looked her up and down. "I'm sorry, do you work here?" "No," Evelyn said evenly. "I'm just a customer, but it seems like you could have handled that more kindly." Dean smirked. "Ma'am, with all due respect, I don't need lectures from random shoppers on how to do my job." Evelyn tilted her head slightly, her tone measured. "And yet the way you're doing it is costing the company more than returns ever could." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," she said softly, "that rudeness is bad business." Several nearby customers glanced over. The young cashier standing beside Dean looked visibly uncomfortable. Dean's voice grew sharper. "Look, I don't have time for this. If you have a complaint, take it up with corporate." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I plan to." Dean chuckled dismissively. "Yeah, sure you do." She stepped back slightly, her gaze steady. "What's your name, young man?" Dean's smirk returned. "Dean Wilcox, store manager." Evelyn nodded slowly. "I'll remember that." Before she could turn to leave, Dean muttered under his breath, "Some people just like to cause trouble." Evelyn stopped. She turned back, her expression unchanged but her voice firm. "Excuse me?" Dean, realizing he'd spoken too loudly, tried to brush it off. "Forget it, ma'am. Have a nice day." But Evelyn didn't move. "No, I'd like you to repeat what you said." The air in the store seemed to shift. The cashier froze. A few customers nearby pretended to browse, sensing tension. Dean's patience snapped. "I said some people don't know when to stop talking." Evelyn's calm eyes met his. "Can't I say some people don't know when they're about to lose their job?" Dean laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "Lady, you don't scare me. I've dealt with your type before." Always complaining, always entitled. Before she could respond, he took a step closer, gesturing dismissively. "Go ahead, call whoever you want. No one's firing me over you." Evelyn remained still, her expression unreadable. Then Dean did something no one could have imagined. In a flash of anger, he reached out, not hard, not enough to injure, but enough to cross a line that could never be uncrossed, and slapped the clipboard she was holding right out of her hands, grazing her wrist in the process. The sound of the clipboard hitting the floor echoed through the store. Everyone went silent. Evelyn didn't flinch. She bent down slowly, picked it up, and straightened her coat. The look she gave him wasn't angry. It was something colder, disappointed, powerful, steady, 2 minutes, she said quietly. Dean blinked. What? In 2 minutes, she repeated calmly. You'll understand what you just did. She pulled her phone from her coat pocket, scrolled through her contacts, and pressed a single button. Hello, Michael, she said when the call connected. Her voice was composed, professional. Yes, it's Evelyn Moore. I'm at your Brantford branch in Lakehurst. Please get the regional director on the line immediately. Dean's smirk faltered. Wait, did you say? She didn't look at him. Yes, I'll wait. Within 60 seconds, her call was transferred. Good morning, Tom. I'm standing in one of your stores watching your manager physically intimidate a customer. I'd like you to arrive here immediately. Bring HR. Dean took a half step back. You're not serious. Evelyn ended the call and met his eyes again. I am always serious when it comes to how my company treats people. Your company? He repeated, stunned. She nodded slowly. Yes, my company. I'm Evelyn Moore, chairwoman of Brantford Holdings. I built this chain 30 years ago, and today I'm seeing how far some of my values have fallen. The color drained from his face. The cashier gasped audibly. One of the customers whispered, "Oh my God." Evelyn stepped closer, her tone still calm. You were right about one thing, Mr. Wilcox. No one is firing you over me. They're firing you because of you. Dean's mouth opened, then closed again. He stood frozen, sweat forming at his temples. 2 minutes later, as promised, the regional director, HR manager, and 2 security officers arrived through the front doors. Evelyn greeted them with quiet authority. Please escort Mr. Wilcox and his assistant management team to the back office. Their employment with Brantford & Co. ends today. The HR manager hesitated. Yes, ma'am. Dean tried to protest. Wait, please. Evelyn raised a hand. You've said enough. As he was led away, the entire store stood silent. Some customers clapped softly. Others simply watched, stunned. When the doors closed behind him, Evelyn turned to the staff. I apologize for what you just witnessed. This store will be undergoing immediate management restructuring. If anyone here ever feels mistreated, employee or customer, you come to me directly. The cashier's eyes filled with tears. Yes, ma'am. Evelyn gave a small nod, then turned toward the young mother from earlier who was still standing quietly near the back. Ma'am, she said gently, bring that coat back up here. Let's make that return happen. The woman nodded, speechless. As she processed the return herself, Evelyn glanced around the store, not as an executive, not as a symbol of power, but as a woman who remembered exactly why she started this company in the first place, to build something that treated people right. And that morning, under the bright lights of aisle 7, she made sure that promise still meant something. The following morning, the story had already spread across every regional news outlet and social platform. Elderly woman owns the company that fired abusive store manager mid-shift. The video taken by a bystander had gone viral overnight, the moment when Evelyn Moore calmly revealed who she was, the stunned look on Dean Wilcox's face, and the quiet authority in her voice as she said, So you're fired? But Evelyn didn't read the comments or watch the footage. She sat at her kitchen table in her modest townhouse, far smaller than most imagined a business magnate to live in, sipping her tea and going through a stack of handwritten letters from store employees. She preferred letters to emails. They reminded her that real people still worked behind every policy, paycheck and logo that bore her company's name. Across the table sat Michael Harris, her chief of staff, his phone buzzing non-stop. It's been chaos since last night, he said. Corporate communications is drowning in requests for interviews. Every outlet wants your comment. Evelyn didn't look up from the letter in her hand. Tell them no comment. We don't gloat over cleaning up our own mess. Michael frowned. But this is good publicity. Customers are applauding you online, saying it's proof Brantford stands for integrity. You could turn this into a major brand moment. Evelyn folded the letter carefully and set it aside. Integrity isn't a marketing strategy, Michael. It's supposed to be the baseline, he sighed. You've got the heart of an idealist, Evelyn, but you run a national chain. You can't control how people use a story like this. She finally looked up. No, but I can control what we learn from it. He hesitated, watching the way she spoke with the same deliberate tone that had made her a legend in the retail world. Calm, composed, but unmistakably firm. What are you planning? He asked. Evelyn leaned back, her expression thoughtful. If a man like Wilcox could rise to store manager without understanding respect, that means the problem isn't just him. It's the culture that allowed it. You want to audit every branch? I want to talk to every branch, she said. Directly, no suits, no PR spin. I want the truth. Michael hesitated, then nodded. You realize that's going to unsettle people. Evelyn smiled faintly. Good. Growth should unsettle. Later that afternoon, she walked into headquarters, the Brantford Tower downtown, 20 floors of polished glass and quiet efficiency. Employees stood as she entered the main floor, whispering her name like she was an apparition. She hated that. She went straight to the conference room, where her executive board was already waiting. The group of 9, polished, confident, corporate, rose quickly as she entered. Sit, she said simply. They obeyed. I'm sure you've seen the news, she began, taking her seat at the head of the table. I don't want to discuss optics. I want to discuss accountability. One of the executives, Rebecca Lynn, cleared her throat. Mrs. Moore, the situation at the Lakehurst branch was unfortunate, but you acted decisively. It's already being framed as strong leadership. Our share value actually ticked up this morning. Evelyn turned her gaze to her. And yet, I'm not proud. Rebecca blinked. Ma'am, if people have to be caught on camera before they act decently, then I've failed to build the kind of company I promised my customers. Silence filled the room. She looked around the table. I built Brantford on 3 values: fairness, dignity, and service. Somewhere along the line, we started caring more about metrics than manners. The CFO, a thin man with glasses named Paul Niles, leaned forward. With all due respect, Mrs. Moore, we can't control every manager in every store. Human error, Evelyn interrupted quietly. Respect isn't an error, Paul. It's a choice, and we've stopped teaching it. No one spoke after that. She stood, placing both hands on the table. Starting today, I want a full leadership retraining program across every division, from executives down to part-time staff. And I'll attend the first one myself. Paul frowned. Ma'am, with your schedule, my schedule, she said firmly, exists to serve the company, not the other way around. The rest of the board nodded slowly, realizing this wasn't about damage control anymore. It was about restoration. After the meeting, Evelyn returned to her office, spacious, sunlit, and lined with photos of her early days in business. One in particular caught her eye, a black and white picture of her standing outside her first store 35 years ago, wearing a thrifted blazer and holding the first dollar the company ever made. She remembered that day vividly. A younger Evelyn had promised herself that no matter how large the company grew, it would always feel human. And yet, somewhere between quarterly earnings reports and corporate expansions, something had shifted. That night she sat alone in her office long after the building emptied. The city lights flickered against the window. She thought about Dean Wilcox, his arrogance, his dismissal, the way he'd looked at her before realizing who she was. She didn't feel hatred toward him, only sadness. People like him were proof of what happens when leadership loses empathy. She picked up her phone and dialed a number from memory. Tom, it's Evelyn. I want to visit the Lakehurst branch again, quietly, after hours. I want to speak to the staff. The voice on the other end hesitated. Of course, ma'am, should we prepare security? No, she said softly, just people. When she arrived later that evening, the store was closed. A handful of employees were waiting in the break room, nervous, unsure why the company's founder wanted to see them. Evelyn smiled warmly. Please sit, you're not in trouble. The tension in the room eased slightly. I came here tonight because I needed to hear from the people who really make this company run. You. Tell me, what do you need from leadership to make your jobs better? For a moment, no one spoke. Then a young stock clerk raised his hand. Ma'am, honestly, we just want to be treated like people, not numbers. Another woman, a cashier, nodded. We're expected to smile no matter what customers say, but our managers don't treat us the same way. It feels one-sided. Evelyn listened, taking notes by hand. Every word mattered to her. When they finished, she said quietly, You've given me more truth in 10 minutes than some executives give me in a year. Thank you. As she stood to leave, one of the employees asked softly, Mrs. Moore, why did you come here yourself? Evelyn smiled faintly. Because when a company forgets what it stands for, the person who built it has to remember first. When she stepped outside, the night air was cool and still. She looked up at the glowing Branford sign above the storefront, her name, her legacy, her responsibility, and whispered to herself, "We'll do better." For the first time in months, she meant it completely. 2 weeks later, the effects of Evelyn Moore's unannounced visit were already spreading through Branford & Co. stores that had once run on autopilot were starting to feel something new. Presence. District managers were showing up in person again, not to scold or inspect, but to listen. New policies emphasizing empathy, fairness, and accountability were rolling out across all branches. And yet, Evelyn knew culture couldn't change through memos alone. People didn't follow rules, they followed examples. She decided to lead by showing up. That morning, Evelyn arrived at a Branford store in downtown Milton City, a bustling location that averaged hundreds of customers a day. No cameras, no media, just Evelyn, dressed plainly, walking through the front doors as if she were any other shopper. The employees didn't recognize her at first. She wandered through the aisles, speaking quietly with clerks, asking them about their shifts, their workload, their training. At first, their answers were cautious, but as they realized she wasn't there to critique, they opened up. One young man at the register, Ethan, smiled nervously when she asked how he liked working there. "It's good, ma'am. Long hours, but better now." "Better?" she asked gently. He nodded. "Ever since that video, everyone's been different. The new manager's nice. She checks in every morning. Even corporate seems to care more." Evelyn smiled softly. "That's good to hear." When she walked away, she heard another cashier whisper, "She reminds me of that lady from the video." By noon, she had quietly spoken to half the staff. She thanked them each by name before slipping into the manager's office, where a woman in her early 40s was reviewing inventory reports. The manager looked up, startled. "Oh, hello. Can I help you?" Evelyn smiled. "You must be Carla Reyes. You're the new manager?" Carla stood quickly. "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Have we met?" Evelyn extended her hand. "Evelyn Moore." Carla froze, her hand halfway extended. She blinked twice. "The Evelyn Moore?" "The same," Evelyn said gently. "Please don't look so alarmed. I just wanted to see how you're settling in." Carla exhaled, regaining her composure. "Honestly, ma'am, I'm still finding my footing. We're trying to rebuild morale after what happened here." Evelyn nodded. "That's why I came. I want to understand how this feels from your side." Carla hesitated, then said softly, "It feels like a second chance, not just for me, but for everyone here. People trust leadership again because they saw what you did. You didn't just fire a bad manager, you reminded us that we matter." Evelyn's expression softened. "That means a lot to hear. But tell me, how are the customers treating you?" Carla smiled faintly. "Better, actually. Word spreads fast. People respect us again. They say they feel safe shopping here." "Good," Evelyn said, standing. "Keep that going. Make kindness your store's brand." Before she left, she handed Carla a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "A title doesn't make you a leader. Compassion does. Keep leading with yours. E.M." Later that afternoon, Evelyn returned to headquarters for a scheduled leadership workshop, the first of its kind since she founded the company. The auditorium was full. District managers, regional directors, even warehouse supervisors. It wasn't mandatory, yet every seat was filled. As Evelyn walked onto the stage, the room fell silent. She didn't speak immediately. She simply stood there for a moment, looking out at the people who carried her company every day. "Some of you know why we're here," she began, "and some of you think you do. But let me be clear, this isn't about one man in one store. This is about us, about what we allowed to slip away while chasing numbers." No one moved. "When I started Branford," she continued, "we didn't have polished mission statements or fancy slogans. We had a promise to treat people like people. Somewhere along the way, we let that promise get buried under performance metrics and corporate tone, and it took one moment of ugliness to remind us who we're supposed to be." Her voice remained calm, but every word carried weight. "I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here to rebuild us. So starting today, I want to make something clear. Every decision you make, every hiring choice, every interaction should answer one question. Does this reflect respect? If the answer's no, it doesn't belong in Brantford. Applause began softly, then grew louder. Afterward, managers lined up to shake her hand. Some thanked her, others apologized for moments they hadn't stood up for employees in the past. Evelyn listened to each of them quietly, grateful and humble. When the room finally emptied, she stayed behind, standing at the podium alone. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't in a long while: hope. Not the corporate kind that comes from a good quarter or a glowing review, but the kind that comes from knowing something was broken and she was finally fixing it. As she left the building, she passed by a group of interns chatting near the lobby. They didn't notice her at first, but she caught part of their conversation. One of them said, "That video made me apply here. If the boss cares that much, maybe it's not just another job." Evelyn smiled faintly as she walked past. They didn't recognize her, and that was fine. She didn't need them to. That night she sat on her balcony overlooking the city. Her tea had gone cold by the time she finally allowed herself to relax. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't thinking about press statements or internal reports. She was thinking about legacy. Not the kind measured in profits, but the kind that lasted in people's memories. The kind that made someone say, "I was treated right there." The kind she'd built Brantford for in the first place. 3 months later, the story of Evelyn Moore had settled into quiet legend. The viral moment had long since disappeared from headlines, but the ripple it left behind had transformed Brantford & Co. More deeply than any marketing campaign ever could. Across the country, customer feedback soared. Employees who once felt invisible now walked with pride. Managers no longer measured success in sales alone, but in how often their teams smiled at work. Even competing companies began studying the Brantford model, a culture built not on control, but on compassion. And through it all, Evelyn remained the same: steady, composed, humble. That afternoon, she sat in the glass-walled conference room of Brantford headquarters, sunlight glinting off the city skyline behind her. The quarterly board meeting was underway. Around the long oak table sat department heads and executives, each presenting their reports. When it was her turn to speak, Evelyn didn't look at the charts or financial projections. She looked at the people. "Before we talk about growth," she began, "I want to talk about gratitude. In the past few months, our numbers haven't just gone up. Our reputation has too. But what matters most is what those numbers represent. People who now feel proud to wear the Brantford name." A few executives nodded, smiling. Evelyn continued, her tone calm but firm. "The truth is, this company lost its way because I lost touch. I thought strong leadership meant distance, that if I stood above, things below would run themselves. I was wrong. Leadership isn't about height, it's about proximity." The room was silent. "I don't want another Lakehurst incident to ever happen again," she said. "But I also don't want that story to disappear, because it reminded us of something priceless. Kindness doesn't trickle down from policy. It rises up from people." When she finished, the board didn't applaud. They didn't need to, they understood. After the meeting, as she walked through the office, employees greeted her with genuine warmth, not out of obligation, but respect. They knew she saw them now. Later that evening, Evelyn made an unscheduled visit to the Lakehurst store again, the place where everything had started. It was quiet that night, just before closing. The lights were soft, the aisles neatly organized. The new manager, Carla Reyes, spotted her the moment she entered. "Mrs. Moore," she said warmly, "I didn't expect you." Evelyn smiled. "I wanted to see how my favorite store was doing." Carla grinned. "Much better. Staff morale is high, sales are steady, and customers still mention you. They call you the lady who stood her ground." Evelyn laughed softly. "I like that better than the woman from the video." They walked together through the aisles, past shelves stocked neatly, employees chatting cheerfully as they cleaned up for the night. The energy was completely different from the day she'd first walked in. As they approached the customer service desk, Evelyn paused. It looked the same counter, same register, same warm lighting, but it felt different, peaceful, Carla noticed the look on her face. Feels like a full circle, doesn't it? Evelyn nodded slowly. Yes, it does. She took a seat at the counter, folding her hands. Do they know? Carla tilted her head. Know what? That I come back sometimes, Carla smiled. A few have guessed, but they never bother you. They say, she built this place. Let her walk where she wants. Evelyn chuckled. Good. I like to see how it breathes without fanfare. A few minutes later, an older employee named Pat, who had worked there for over a decade, approached shyly. Mrs. Moore, I just wanted to say thank you. Evelyn turned. For what, dear? For giving us our dignity back, Pat said softly. When that man was in charge, I thought about quitting after 20 years. But when you stood up that day, you gave me hope again. Evelyn reached out and squeezed her hand gently. You didn't need me to give you hope, Pat. You just needed to be reminded that you deserved it. As the store lights dimmed and the staff said their goodnights, Evelyn lingered for a moment longer. She walked back to the same aisle where she'd first met the young mother months ago. The shelves were full, the air calm. She imagined the echo of that day, her voice, his anger, the silence that followed, and smiled faintly. Sometimes history doesn't repeat. It restores. The next morning, she returned to headquarters for a video call with all regional managers. The screen filled with dozens of faces from every state. When she appeared, they greeted her warmly. Good morning, everyone, she said. Before we discuss numbers, I want to remind you of something. Titles change, positions rotate, but decency never expires. You represent this company not by the badge you wear, but by how you treat the people standing in front of you, especially when no one's watching. Her tone softened. That's how you build trust. That's how you build legacy. When the call ended, she sat in silence for a moment, sunlight spilling across her desk. The world outside moved fast. New stores, new markets, new challenges. But she felt no rush. She had learned that success wasn't about being everywhere at once. It was about being fully present where it mattered most. That evening, she walked through the Brantford corporate lobby. The new company slogan hung above the entrance, something the marketing team had crafted in her honor, though she hadn't approved it yet. It read, "Respect is the brand." She stopped and smiled. For the first time, the words didn't feel like a slogan. They felt like truth. As she stepped out into the golden light of early evening, the city buzzed softly around her, cars passing, people laughing, the rhythm of life she'd spent decades serving. Evelyn pulled her coat tighter, a quiet satisfaction filling her chest. The company didn't just belong to her anymore. It belonged to every person who walked through those doors, worker, customer, stranger, because she'd made sure they all mattered. And as the sun dipped low, her reflection in the glass doors smiled back, reminding her of what leadership really was. Not control, not wealth, not fear. It was grace under pressure, and the courage to stand tall when others bowed.